Hello, I'm Derek, and welcome back to the Change the Game, Start Again podcast. This podcast is made for busy professionals looking to address their approach to fitness. In this week's episode, we are joined once again by a special guest, Jenny Devonshire, and we are going to discuss resilience in the workplace and how fitness can help. Jenny is a psychologist in training. She's a personal trainer, a Pilates instructor, a yoga instructor, and Jenny is the founder of the performance focus workplace wellness portal Pause to Perform. So Jenny's currently in my little green room. Let's bring her on. There we go. Hello Jenny, how are we doing?
Hello, I'm very well. How are you today?
I'm very good. Welcome back to the podcast. I brought you back for two reasons. The first reason is my views went through the roof last week. Everyone seemed to like your little chat, and my YouTube channel got like 27 views in one day, which is quite a lot for a podcast video, and then my Spotify absolutely blew up, so thanks for that. So that was good. People obviously care about what you've got to say. And also I brought you back because we want to talk about resilience and where our conversation was going last week, and with what you do with Pause to Perform, I thought this would be a good time to bring you back, especially as people are going back to work. And last week we talked about back to work blues, and this week we're going to just dive into resilience, because this word's bouncing around a bit, and I thought we'd have a podcast on talking about, firstly, what is resilience in the workplace, and then how fitness can help. So let's start with, why are we actually talking about resilience? You've just done a webinar on resilience actually on Tuesday.
Yes.
How did that go?
That's really good, actually. Yeah, it's nice to talk about it. It's something that I've been doing a lot of research on recently. I had my last assignment for uni was on resilience, so I did loads of reading loads of different journal articles, and then also I'm doing I've got to do my thesis or research project. It's like a big assignment, and resilience is going to be part of that. So it's something that I'm really interested in, and something that can be really beneficial to people.
Yeah, and we both listened to a podcast this week about resilience, didn't we? The High Performance podcast, which is almost as good as this podcast. Bill and Bear Grylls was a special guest, and that was a great episode, wasn't it?
Oh, it's so good, yeah.
I reckon that's my favourite podcast that I've listened to in a long time. So Bear Grylls, so the High Performance podcast is two blokes. They one of them's a professor, one of them's a sports presenter, and they bring on some of the top personalities and interview them. And Bear Grylls was just brilliant. He talks about resilience. He talks about resilience being the currency of life, to never give up spirit, to never give up spirit, and the one true equalizer amongst people. And I think we can both agree on that, right? Resilience to bounce back when things get tough, the resilience to kind of put the work effort in. Did you have any highlights from that podcast you want to bring up?
I think it was just the fact of, people who are successful. It's not easy. It's not like everything they try is a success. It's the fact that they keep on trying, and they pick themselves up, and they keep on. So I think he said it was like, out of 10 things he's tried, he had one success, and that's like really nice to hear, because you're like, right, I've tried loads of stuff. And yeah, and then just the fact that resilience is, it's that thing of not giving up, and stress is inevitable. You're not going to be able to eliminate it completely. I mean, you can do what you can to reduce stress, but it's always going to be there. So it's like how you can manage it and how you sort of face it is the key to making it like have less impact on you physically and mentally.
Yeah, I think he just talks very honestly as well. And he's very open about stuff. You can just see the hard work he's put in. And I thoroughly enjoyed that episode, and that's also why I wanted to bring you on the back end of listening to that. So let's go on to resilience in the workplace, and then we'll talk about how fitness can help. So resilience in the workplace, where shall we start? So we talk about the impact of stress on work and on individuals.
Yes. Yeah. So basically, I think the last few years have been particularly stressful, but stress has always had a big impact on the workplace. So I think it's 1 in 7 employees experience mental health problems, and it's nearly 15% of that it disrupts their ability to work. And there's also an increasing number of people being signed off work with chronic stress, which is not what you want really. And and I think, and it costs employers 45 billion a year, their employees being having sort of these mental health problems. And so it basically, I think stress in itself accounts for 9 million sick days a year, which is quite a lot. So that's why it's really important, something that you can you want to kind of give people the tools to be able to deal with stress better, so that hopefully they wouldn't then end up in the state where they have to be signed off work.
Yeah, and I think if you bring this up in a conversation 15 years ago, you would have got anywhere. But today, the world's faster, people are under so much more pressure, so there is stuff that you can do about this now, and there is support and ways to tackle it. So let's look at the benefits then of having resilience. I know you brought this up in your podcast last week, in your webinar last week.
Yeah, so it's been shown it helps people to be more motivated. It also helps improve employees' overall health, or just anyone's overall health. It improves performance because you're dealing better with stress. It also leads to less absenteeism and presenteeism. So presenteeism, if everyone doesn't know, it's basically when you're at work physically, but you're not really there. You're sort of going through the motions. You're present, but you're not engaged. So you're not going to be as productive as you normally would be. It also means it helps people to be more adaptable and better able to deal with challenges, and also better able to deal with change. Because I know, like most of us, don't like change. So it just makes you more resilient against it. And it also helps people to be more problem-solving orientated. So yeah, it's got lots of benefits.
And that ties in with having confidence as well, right?
Yeah, well, confidence is an aspect of resilience, yeah.
Right, okay. So explain that.
So basically, so you've got... So the main thing about resilience is about how you think about things. So it's this challenge appraisal. So you can see a situation that is either a challenge, which is like a positive thing, or as a threat. And so when it's more of a challenge, it's kind of like rising to the occasion and something that you can like learn from, grow from. Whereas if it's a threat, it can physically, it's actually does you more harm, and then also emotionally. And then it's also how we think about things. So a lot of resilience is to do with your thoughts, and which is most things. I mean, there was a quote in Hamlet by Shakespeare that was, "There's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." And it's that idea that obviously, if you do have a massive trauma, it is never going to be good. But how you think about it is going to massively influence how much it affects you. And so basically, with resilience, there are different aspects that influence it. So you've got, so it's like psychological factors, and there's motivation is one of them. You've got focus, your perceived social support is really important, and your confidence and positive personality. So these all come together, and then if you have all those, like, kind of, people will have different areas that they're like stronger in than others, and then that can lead to a more facilitative response rather than to the stress than like that kind of more maladaptive one.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk, like, positive personality literally jumped out at me then, because I'm quite a positive person. That's one of kind of my strengths, I would say. So let's talk about having a positive personality and how that ties in with making you resilient.
Yeah. So there's positive personality. The things that they've kind of come up, like they define like positive personality, is openness to new experiences. So that kind of being able to deal with change. Conscientiousness, innovative, extroverted, emotionally stable. Who's that? I don't know. Proactive and optimistic. And so of this, there was a study that they've used optimism. You couldn't, because basically we're born optimistic, and it's just like through life experiences or what you're sort of brought up with, you can become more pessimistic. But you can actually develop your optimism skills. It's basically based on cognitive behavior therapy. It's this ABC model. And it's all to do with the thoughts and challenging your thoughts and beliefs, because you've got an external event which might not necessarily be that bad in and of itself, but what we believe about it. So there's things like catastrophizing. So you think, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. And that will then create all these thoughts and feelings, which then leads it on to be more like detrimental to you. So the whole idea between this ABC model is to catch those thoughts when something external happens, and then challenge it, and then like try and like reframe it, and also look at what's the likelihood of that, the catastrophe that you thought was going to happen. Is that likely? What's more likely? And just basically being really aware of your thoughts and that negative thinking. So then that's how you develop your optimism, and then it helps develop resilience. So yeah, that's it.
So alongside the PT, so my PT life, I also work with PTs. I teach PTs, and on one of my courses I run, I talk about the success loop. Do you remember we covered that before in the past, where you talk about self-stacking and reversing that? So I talk of it in the sense of self-stacking. So talk about PTs, when PTs first start in a new gym, sometimes they're like, the gym's not busy, I don't have any clients, I'm not good enough, I'm not in enough shape, I don't know enough yet. And it's like, who's
that
told you
spiral.
this? Who's told you this? You just made this up in your head. And it's like, it's called, from the model I learned it from, it's called self-stacking, where you just self-stacking problems on top of each other that don't exist, that you've just made up.
Just in your head.
Just causing all this self-doubt. And if you just reverse stack, look for the possibilities of where you could go.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I am a good, in terms of like PT, oh, actually, I'm a good enough trainer. I do know what I'm talking about. I'm looking for this type of client that I could help. And if you start looking at where you could go instead of self-stacking problems, then you've got the ability to grow. Yeah. Okay.
So that thought stopping. So reframing your thoughts from the negative to the positive is really powerful.
And, we get it. I get it all the time with this podcast. Like every time I go to the podcast, who wants to listen to this? Am I actually good? Should I do a podcast? Like, no one's told me this, but people are listening to it. Yeah. So it's like, I could easily self-stack and not do this, but believing that it's the right thing to do makes me want to do it. Right. Okay. So that's enough about the workplace. Let's get back to fitness. Let's talk about how fitness. Let's talk about how fitness can help. And what I want to talk about first of all is what fitness can do, mental toughness within fitness, and then like tackling injuries and stuff, because resilience plays a part of that. But fitness helps you reorganize your brain to deal with stress, doesn't it? Because fitness teaches you to, training is a stress on your body, but it's a commitment that you push yourself to do, right?
Yeah, and also it's you get yourself used to stress, so that you have, so basically it's the same thing as like cold showers and all that stuff. It's you're getting that response, so you're kind of like diminishing it. So you've got, your cortisol is a stress hormone. So the more you kind of stress your body, the less that strong that reaction will be. So you get used to being stressed. So then you can better cope with other stress later down the line.
And with fitness, like the mental toughness to turn up every day, like nobody wants to. Nobody wants. Like I'm going swimming at the moment quite a bit, so I don't want to go swimming at 6:30. I kind of do, but the mental toughness of getting up, getting to the pool, get swimming. Yeah. That just starts to come natural to me, and people that have been training for a long time build this mental toughness to get up the next day and go do it, because they know they need to do it, and then they just frame their mind to do it. But when people first starting out, this is the first big block to get over, isn't it? So someone like me, someone like you, we're going to, because fitness is such a big part of our life, we're happy to turn up, put in the work, put our body through that pain, that stress, that and work hard through the session every day, because it's something that it's just built into us. So it's a mental toughness that we take for granted now.
Yeah, definitely. And also when you're doing those,
but then for people that where fitness isn't a part of their life, this is something where they need to build into their life. And a few weeks in, like January is a perfect example. Is it the third week in January is normally the week everyone starts to drop off, because that's when you need that mental toughness, you need that resilience to turn up every day, to keep going, to know that results will come in the future. You just got to put the hard work in now. Yeah. You was about to say something just before.
I was just gonna say, especially when you do sort of workouts that are quite challenging, because I have it some days, and because it ties in with that kind of focus. Like some days I'll be doing like a really horrible workout, but I'm like in the zone, and like my brain's really quiet. I'm just going through the motions. It's hard, but I'm like, it feels good. Then there's those other days where I'm doing it, I'm like, all I can have is that voice in my head going like, this is horrible, this is really hard, I don't want to do it, I want to stop. And it's like that kind of, that's training yourself. When you don't give into it, it's training yourself to like not give up. So it's like, right, you've committed to this, you're going to do it even if you don't want to, and knowing that like I will feel good afterwards, but it's not great. And then it's like I think that constant refusing to give up when you don't want to do something builds that strength to then, when you come up with other challenges, you know that you've got it in you to just like focus. And yeah, and then that's why that whole thing like mindfulness and meditation is so good. It's because it's the voice in your head. Like for me, I always give up mentally before physically. And
Always, yeah.
it's
That's the
yeah,
way
and
the
it's
body
like, well, I could
works,
always
yeah.
do more. Yeah. And it's like,
Yeah.
you've always got that little bit more, which is why competitions, like, you really find where how much more you've got to give, because you do go like all out. And yeah, so it's just like that constant, so it's a really good way to train yourself to like that sort of the resilience. So some people call mental toughness, that's what it used to be, like kind of very very fashionable. But yeah, just like kind of using that to be like physically strong and mentally strong for other endeavors, basically.
My ultimate mental test is a 2,000 meter row. Like, I've not rowed for a little while because of my injury, but there was a stage where I was very much into rowing, and I was doing like a steady 2Ks. I had 2Ks at pace, but if I was going to do a max effort 2K, I would need such a build up to it.
Yeah.
Like, there's a whole training phase leading up to this moment, because that moment I have to turn up the very best me to do it, to break my time. And I think that's what separates the normal people to the pro athletes, is where they can shut off that voice in their head that says, I don't want to do this anymore, and then they push that one more level. They have the ability to do that, and that's what separates them to normal people, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really
it's
does,
actually interesting. Like, I was reading an article the other day about how more and more athletes are using sports psychologists now, because it is really super stressful, and also like the sort of the mental side of it is just as important as the physical. You need to like, train your brain, because especially because like competition is so stressful, and like having they have people like touring with them. They're like it's like a massive thing now that people are really understanding that how important the mind is. Because also there's another thing I was listening to this podcast the other day, and it's really interesting about how much the mind controls your body. There was one study, it was like a milkshake study. It's a bit going off topic, but so basically these people, they were given exactly the same milkshake, but they were told in one of the milkshakes, they said it was like really calorie dense, like high fat, what have you. Same milkshake, like a week later, or they obviously randomized the order. But the other one was, they were told it was like a low fat, like diet shake. It actually influenced their ghrelin levels, which is like your hunger hormone. So when they thought it was more nutritious or higher calorie, they actually filled them up and changed their hormones. So that's how powerful your beliefs are.
Yeah.
And there was another study on people working in a hotel, like the people who clean the rooms. And they said that what you believe about your exercise influences the benefits of the exercise. So they were cleaning like all day, like 8 hours. That's really physical, but they didn't see it as exercise. Then they told half of them about what they were doing, and they then got the benefits. They lost weight, their blood pressure reduced, and I think and they felt better. So like just believing that they were doing more exercise changed their physiology, which is really powerful.
Yeah. You're saying about having psychologists. We just finished the Australian Open with Rafa Nadal one. Like, I think tennis, you've got to be a lunatic to play tennis.
Because you're there on your own. All that pressure, all those people, like, and if they're chanting the other player's name, and you know that they're not on your side. Because I was listening to
and you can be 40 love down, and the pros play for every point. They'll go 40, 15, 40, 30, and then they'll lose. But like, they'll still fight for every single point for 5 hours.
Andre Agassi, I was reading Andre Agassi's autobiography, and you could see, like, because for years he didn't like get to his full potential, and it was all the mental side of it. He just kind of gave up in the middle of like games and stuff. It's quite interesting. And then he changed his mindset, and then that's when he started doing amazingly well. So yeah, but tennis definitely one where you need some help on the mind front.
And athletics is the same actually. You've got to be a lunatic to do athletics, because it's like the smallest moment. It's like there's not a team game where you got like in rugby 80 minutes.
It's so short as well.
In
100 meters.
Yeah, and that's why Usain Bolt was just a different. He had his set up. He was like fist pumping the crowd and stuff. And the team, but he just had his way of getting into that moment where the other people couldn't. They'll jump the line. They'll do stuff wrong. Yeah. And that's why he really separated. But anyway,
sorry, just one thing on that. There was a really interesting picture of like the lineup. I think it was when Bolt was in it, of how the different people were preparing for it. There's some people like looking down. Some people are looking like at the end of like the race, and then Bolt's just like getting it all from the crowd. But yeah, it's just like how everyone copes with things differently or prepares differently.
Yeah, he was another level. Right, so that's turning up every day, putting in the effort.
Mm-hmm.
That's once you build that, and once people get into fitness, they turn to love it, and then that becomes a routine that becomes
Mm-hmm.
part of their life, and they miss it when it's not there. So turning up every day is one thing, but no matter what, putting in the work. But what happens when you get injured? I think this is a true test, because we've both been injured. I've had big hamstring issues in the past. I've just broke my kneecap and just had surgery and on the back end of that, and it's been horrendous. I'm not going to lie. Like, being injured and you don't know what you got till it's gone is literally what it's like. You take your body like, especially me, I take my body for granted all the time. Do it, the stuff I used to do in the gym, the training I used to do, and then when it gets taken away, it is just such a big slap in the face. Like, you really miss it. And it's been tough. I'm not going to lie. Like, 2021, all my events got cancelled. Then I had to have surgery, and then I'm hopping around. But like, I am bouncing back, and I think when you do get injured, you need the resilience to bounce back, to get back to where you were. Right, bouncing back from injury is a hard thing to do, but it's so important that you do get over it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like, the problem with, especially with injuries, it's like, it's the unknown, isn't it? It's out of your control, and control is like really important. And like, you think, what if I never get better? And it's like fear, and and like you say, you suddenly really realize, you just for me, it's like you don't notice anything until it hurts, and then you're like, oh, this is like, what's this? And so just being able to like carry on, and because then it affects, like, most, if you are someone who exercises a lot, or an athlete where it's like your career and everything. But if you look at like Andy Murray, just did not want to give up. He had a hip operation, like major surgery, because he couldn't give up tennis, and so it's like kind of keeping on going and trying not to let yourself fall into that kind of depressed state where you're just like, oh, this is the end of the world kind of thing. I think that's when it's really important. I think one of the things you can do is just really focusing on what you can still do rather than what you can't. Because and even if it's really boring, it's not what you want to be doing. You just have to be like, right, focus on what you can control, and try and like not think about what you can't, because it's not going to get you anywhere. And it's that positive personality again, like try to look on the bright side.
Like, I took my time off. I've been respecting my rehab, and then swimming very much come into my life, because that's one thing I can do. You don't really have to kick. You don't really have to use your legs.
Body.
So like, I was like, okay, well, I'll do that. I can do upper body weights in the gym. Then I broke into cycling, and spent like 10 weeks post surgery now, and I'm making big improvements. But I have a newfound respect for my body.
Oh yeah, I bet.
and I never want to go through something like this again.
No.
And if you're someone that's never been injured, you are very lucky, and you need to right now not wrap yourself in cotton wool. You should. I mean, I can't wait to get back to pushing myself, redlining, chucking weights around, lifting heavy. But and I'm pushing myself back in sport. I can't wait for that. But if you're someone that's never been injured and you think you're invincible, we're all invincible for a little bit, and then once you get injured, then it's a long way back. So taking care of your body is a massive priority, and should always be a priority around your training. Look, like, ripping apart the way you move, the way you live, the way you sleep, the way you eat, everything that goes into looking after your body is something you take for granted until you lose it, until you get injured.
And I think a lot of people just put up with little niggles, and you really shouldn't, because you shouldn't have pain. And I was listening to something, I can't remember what it was saying, like, it was Marcus Philly, he was on his podcast, and he was talking about like people saying about like, oh, is it normal to be in pain at whatever age? And it's like, well, no, not really. And I think, like, apart from like the things I've had which I've got reasons for, I haven't been, touch wood. So, and like when I went to see like a movement specialist recently, because I was like, rather than trying to treat like the pain, it's never normally where it starts from, I was trying to get back to like, so I'm moving properly so that I don't end up with other injuries, because it's always a knock-on effect of something else. And so like when you do start to be like, oh, that hurts a bit, oh, I'll just push through it, you really shouldn't. You should address it, because your body needs to last you for a very long time, hopefully. So you need to look after it. And that's why people who like desk work and what have you, when you're not doing any exercise, you are going to get problems later down the line. So you need to like,
lower back pain will find you.
Oh yeah, and like you need to start the younger you start, the easier it is. I mean, I've got clients who's started, they're like, oh, they wish they'd never stopped because it's much harder once you stop. And, you know, do it as soon as possible. And then, so you can then carry on moving really well right up until like, you know, 90s or 100s even. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what, I mean, you've had a career working with pre and postnatal women, right? And their answer is always, I wish I was fitter before going into this. I wish, you know, I didn't back off as much, because it helps. And with like just normal life, like the one thing I hate, like I really do hate it, like when I get like, you know, when I was having my knees problems, people just go, oh, you're getting older, and it's just like, no, just because you're getting older, that doesn't mean you're going to get injured, because it just, as you get older, just more volume has gone through your body. You know, if you've been sitting at a desk for 2 years, you'll probably be all right. If you've been sitting at a desk for 12 years, then your back's probably about had it, you know. If you never, you know, you don't start off with tight hamstrings, but if you don't do anything about it, they're only going to get tighter over time. And then your back you'll start making straight lines with a nice flat back, and then all of a sudden you're going to like this C shape. Everyone sits like this, and then all of a sudden it goes into this collapse.
The neck stuck forward and like round your shoulders.
And you're like, that didn't happen overnight. That's happened over time, and now you just got. It's not that you're older. It's a time thing. It's you've neglected for that amount of time. With injuries, it's if you get injured through training, or if you've got to look why you got injured, it's probably it might be an overuse injury, too much too soon. It might be a movement literacy, but normally it is, right? You don't you don't move in an optimal way. You know, we're made to run, jump, climb, kill, and like most of us can't do any of those. You know, exactly. And it's like we don't move like an optimal unit, and we don't move like we're meant to, because we don't put ourselves in those positions, and that's where training forces you into those positions. When you're doing legs, when you're lunging, when you're getting on the floor, getting back up, and when you're doing all the 7 movement patterns of like a knee dominant movement, a hip dominant movement, a horizontal push, a horizontal pull, a vertical push, a vertical pull, and then like core and carries. They're things we're made to do. And the more you put those in your training and start moving like an optimal human, the pain will go away, and you'll prevent pain, right? So let's
also like pull. Sorry, just one thing. So just pull. Generally, unless you are going to the gym, when would you do that in your day-to-day life? It's very like, you don't really.
Oh,
you never really do it, do you? Unless you're purposely doing it. I can't think of anything that I do on a daily, just around the house.
You pull things towards you,
not really. Doors, they're not that heavy. So you don't really do that. So that's why people have this kind of, you're sitting on your laptop all day, your shoulders are rounded forward, elongating all the muscles on the back, and then you're not strengthening them. So of course you're going to get into these terrible postures. So
Right. So always ending on positives. What can people do then? So
for resilience.
For resilience, for fitness, how they can all bring it back in. Where shall we start with that? Let's start like in the workplace quickly, some tips, and then with tips to getting into fitness.
For the workplace, well, now people are back in the office. I think that's a good thing, because people are actually having to travel to work. Because I think when the pandemic hit and people weren't even leaving the house, I think some people's step counts went down to like 100 or something terrible. So walking, if you can, like walk everywhere. It's obviously easier in London because you have transport and everything. But if you're in an office, walk up the stairs, just bringing exercise into your daily life rather than, if you hate it, trying to do those bits wherever it's there, like walking up the escalator, walking upstairs if they're there, rather than getting the lift. Those little bits, they'll all add up, and And also the other good thing I found about this before, when I used to work in an office, I've always drunk a lot of water or tea. So that's good, because then you're getting up, you're going to make a cup of tea, and then you'll need the toilet, so you have to walk to the toilet. And if you think about it, it's kind of a squat, getting in and out of a chair. And so just like trying to get like that everyday activity. And also, I mean, probably a bit less in the workplace. You might feel a bit silly, but
sorry, my iPad's reading out there.
And also the other thing is, like, rather than trying to do like massive blocks of exercise, break it down. So even if like every time you get up, if you're working from home, you probably want to do that instead. Do like 10 squats. And every hour put an alarm on your phone to get up and move, and like, yeah, do 10 squats or do a minute, whatever, even if it's just one or two, just build it up. There was a book, this guy, a psychologist who specialized in habits, and he was saying like start small, like really small, like one press up or one squat, because then if something's small it's really manageable, and then you're more likely to do it, and then once that becomes a habit you can build on it, rather than be like, right, I know loads of people are like, I'm gonna go to the gym 5 times a week. It's like, from nothing, what yeah. That's never going to happen, so be realistic.
Whoa.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I go to the gym like 5 or 6 times a week, but I've been doing it for ages and it's my job. But yeah, if you don't like it, then that's just setting yourself up for failure. So that's, yeah, so make it really small and manageable, make it easy, so make it so like things like having your gym kit by the door if you're going to the gym, going to a gym on the way to your work so that it's not out of your way, all those kind of things. And lunch breaks, taking a lunch break is really important anyway for your mind, reset yourself. Like if you can, go for a walk in your lunch break, eat and then go for a walk. It helps with like your digestion and everything, and also getting fresh air is really good for you, and it would just getting yourself away from the workplace and walking, it's that low impact exercise which is really beneficial. And if you are trying to start exercise, like being accountable is massive. So either posting about it online, if that's what you want to do, or having a gym buddy, but make sure it's a gym buddy that's more likely to be like going than be like, should we just not? Because we all know those people. So all those things. But yeah, I think the main one is trying to bring it into your daily life as much as possible. So wherever there's an opportunity to like move rather than take the easy option, go for that. And then hopefully you'll over time you'll realize that you're actually moving a lot more. And
you'll never regret it. And I think like the good thing about, the odd person has an Android, everyone else has Apple Watches and phones. Just go and check where your step count is, because I set people weekly targets. Like it might be 5,000 a day, so you need to do 35,000 steps a week. If you have a bad day, as long as that hits 35,000 by the end of the week, you can make peace with yourself. Just something realistic like that. I've got mine at 10,000 a day because that's where I want to be. So I want to do 70,000 a week. If I have a day where it's like I've got to do laptop stuff, I'm down to 3 or 4, then the other days I'll make it up. So as long as in the week I've covered that volume, then I've moved enough. So that's one way to look at fitness, and that's for like maybe people that fitness isn't a part of their life. But for people that fitness is a big part of their life, how do they step it up? So I know you're really into meditation, and that's really opened your mind, and that's worked quite well for you, bringing that into your life, right? And having that time.
Well, I mean, I still struggle with it, but I just do it in the morning before my brain's had too much time to start thinking. But yeah.
And like mobility and look after your body. So if you are somebody that fitness is a part of your life, you've never been injured, take it for someone who's been injured, you don't want to get injured. Really look after your body in every possible way. Look at your training, look at your movement, and and try to protect yourself, and then you'll be able to turn up.
Incorporate things you already do. That's the best way. So like, if you want to do mobility, do it as part of your gym session. So it's like it's something that you're already doing. It's easier to tag it on. So rather than trying to find another time of day to do it, if you're struggling.
Right. Very good. Right. Well, I think we'll sum up there. So we talked about resilience. We talked about resilience in the workplace, and then why fitness is so important. And the more fitness elements you can add into the life, the tougher you'll be, or it will help you deal with stress better, and it will help improve you overall. So thanks, Jenny. Thanks for being on. I'll put the links below to Pause Perform so people can see what that's about and how you work with people in the office. I'll put all your LinkedIn and details on, because if you don't follow Jenny on LinkedIn, she posts loads of good quality content that you can apply to your life. Jenny, are you keen to come back for another episode? We were talking about discussing habits, and snacking in the workplace was going to be one of them.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah, we'll bring you back on for that. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. We'll be back another week. I'll be back next week, and then we'll see when we can get Jenny back on. She's a very busy person these days. But thanks for listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and like the video. If you listen to it on Spotify, Apple, then just follow the channel, because it supports it and it helps with the algorithm and stuff. Right, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.